This is Amara. At just 12 years old, she lived in a world of absolute silence. She had no voice, literally, since the tragic accident that took her family 5 years ago. Trauma had stolen her ability to speak. She hadn't uttered a single word since she was 7. Born into a life of promise, but thrown into the gutter by fate, Amara was now a slave to a cruel woman named Madame Kofo, who ran a dirty, smoke-filled roadside bar in the heart of Lagos. To the customers, Amara was just the mute girl, a punching bag, a ghost in dirty rags who scrubbed floors and washed plates until her hands bled. But while Amara had no voice, she had a secret, a gift that was so rare, so powerful, that it felt almost like magic. Amara had perfect pitch. She could hear a melody once, just once, and remember it forever. In her head, the noise of the chaotic city wasn't just noise, it was a symphony. The honking cars, the falling rain, the rhythm of footsteps. She wove them into music in her mind to survive the pain. But in a world that only valued money and power, who would ever listen to a homeless mute girl? Across the street from Madame Kofo's filthy bar stood the Royal Desmond Hotel. It was a palace of white marble and gold, owned by Chief Desmond, a billionaire who was as cold as the ice in his whiskey. Chief Desmond had everything a man could want, yet he had nothing. 3 years ago, his wife, Clara, a famous classical pianist, died suddenly. On the day she died, Desmond banned music from his life. He fired staff for humming. He silenced the lobby radio. He covered Clara's grand piano in the ballroom with a heavy sheet and swore it would never be played again. Two worlds separated by a single road, one of noise and poverty, one of silence and wealth. But one rainy Tuesday, those worlds were about to collide in a way that would break the internet. So grab your tissues and get ready, because this story proves that sometimes the most beautiful songs come from the darkest places. And if you believe in destiny, hit that like button right now. It started with a broken plate. The rain was pouring down in sheets, turning the roadside dust into thick black mud. Amara was washing dishes behind the bar, her small body shivering from the damp cold. Her hands were slippery with soap, and in a split second, a ceramic plate slipped from her fingers and shattered on the concrete. The sound was like a gunshot. Madame Kofo stormed in, her eyes bulging with rage. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't care. She grabbed Amara by the hair and dragged her out into the rain. "You useless, cursed thing! That plate cost more than your life! Get out! Don't come back until you find the money to pay for it." With a violent shove, Amara was thrown into the mud. The metal gate slammed shut and the lock clicked. Amara banged on the door, her mouth opening in a silent scream. But no one came. She was alone. The rain bit into her skin like needles. She had nowhere to go. She looked around desperately for shelter, and her eyes landed on the service entrance of the Royal Desmond Hotel across the street. It was a risk. The guards were known to beat street kids who came too close, but the cold was unbearable. Amara ran across the highway, dodging speeding cars that honked and swerved. She slipped through a gap in the service fence and huddled near the warm vents of the hotel's massive generator. She closed her eyes, trying to imagine a song to keep her warm. That was when Pa Musa, the old security guard, found her. He shone his flashlight on her shivering form. Anyone else would have chased her away, but Pa Musa had a kind heart. He saw the terror in her eyes. "Quiet," he whispered, looking around to ensure the supervisor wasn't watching. "The service corridor is open. Go inside and dry off, but only for 10 minutes. If the chief sees you, we are both dead." Amara nodded frantically and slipped inside. The hallway was warm and smelled of lavender and floor wax. She meant to stay by the door, but a strange pull, a magnetic force, drew her deeper into the building. She walked past the kitchens, past the laundry, until she found herself in front of a set of double mahogany doors. She pushed one open and gasped. It was the ballroom, dark, silent, and majestic. And there, in the center, sat the forbidden piano, covered in a white sheet like a sleeping ghost. Amara knew she shouldn't touch it. She knew this was the billionaire's most prized possession, but her hands moved on their own. She walked to the stage, her dirty feet leaving faint prints on the plush carpet.
She pulled back the sheet. The black lacquer gleamed in the moonlight. She sat on the bench, her heart pounding against her ribs. She reached out and pressed a single key. The note rang out, pure and perfect. It was the first beautiful thing she had felt in years. Tears welled in her eyes. She pressed another, then another. Suddenly, the music inside her took over. Amara began to play. She didn't play a nursery rhyme. She played a complex, haunting melody that she had heard in her dreams. Her fingers danced across the ivory keys with a skill she shouldn't have possessed. She poured all her pain, her silence, and her loneliness into that piano. For 10 minutes, she wasn't a slave. She was a queen. She didn't hear the door open behind her. She didn't hear the heavy footsteps of Chief Desmond, who had been walking the halls, unable to sleep. Desmond froze in the doorway. He had heard the music from the elevator, and he had stormed down ready to fire whoever was disobeying his rule. But when he saw the small, ragged figure at the piano, his anger turned to confusion. The song. He knew that song. It was the lullaby Clara had been writing before she died, a song she never released, a song only he knew. "Who are you?" Desmond's voice boomed across the room, shaking with a mix of rage and shock. Amara snapped out of her trance. She turned, saw the terrifying man in the suit, and panic seized her. She scrambled off the bench, knocking over the stool with a loud crash. She didn't wait to explain. She couldn't explain. She ran. She bolted past him, dodging his outstretched hand, and sprinted down the hallway, bursting out into the rain and disappearing into the night before he could catch her. Desmond was left standing alone in the ballroom, the ghost of the melody still hanging in the air. He touched the piano keys, trembling. Was he going mad, or had his wife just sent him a message? The next day, the atmosphere at the hotel was tense. Desmond ordered the security team to review the CCTV footage. He printed a picture of the girl, grainy and dark, and told his staff, "Find her. I don't care what it takes, find the girl." Meanwhile, back at the dirty bar, Madame Kofo was furious. Amara had returned in the morning, soaking wet and empty-handed. Madame Kofo beat her and forced her to work double shifts as punishment. But word had reached Kofo that the rich man across the street was looking for a street rat who had broken into his hotel. Kofo's twisted mind immediately jumped to a conclusion. Amara must have stolen something. If the police came, Kofo would be blamed for harboring a thief. Panic set in. Kofo decided to get ahead of the story. She grabbed Amara by the collar and dragged her out to the front of the hotel gates, screaming at the top of her lungs to attract attention. "Thief! Thief! This girl is a thief! She stole from the big man! I caught her!" A crowd gathered instantly. People brought out their phones to record. Amara cried silently, shaking her head, trying to sign that she was innocent, but Kofo slapped her hands down. "Stop lying! You think because you are mute you can fool us?" Kofo shouted, playing to the crowd. "I will discipline her right here." Inside the hotel, Desmond heard the commotion. He looked out his office window and saw the scene. The girl, the same small frame, the same tattered clothes. He rushed down, his security detail trailing behind him. "Stop!" Desmond's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The crowd parted instantly. Madame Kofo froze, her hand raised to hit Amara again. She quickly changed her demeanor, bowing low with a fake, oily smile. "Ah, Chief, good afternoon, sir. I caught this little rat. I heard she broke into your hotel last night. Don't worry, I was just about to take her to the police station for you. She is a thief." Desmond walked closer. He ignored Kofo and looked down at Amara. She was cowering in the dirt, bruised and terrified. "Did you steal from me?" he asked quietly. Amara shook her head vigorously, tears streaming down her mud-stained cheeks. "She is lying," Kofo yelled. "She has something in her pocket. I saw her hiding it." Kofo lunged forward and ripped Amara's torn pocket open. A small, crumpled object fell into the mud. It wasn't jewelry. It wasn't money. It was an old, water-damaged photograph. Desmond looked down at the photo. His heart stopped. He fell to his knees, ignoring the mud ruining his expensive suit. He picked up the photo with trembling hands. It was a picture of his late wife, Clara, standing in an orphanage holding a baby. On the back of the photo, in Clara's handwriting, were the words, "To my little Melody, I will come back for you." Desmond looked up at Amara, his eyes wide with a realization that shattered his world. "Where did you get this?" he whispered. Amara pointed to herself. She tapped her chest. Then she made a motion of playing a piano. Lying!" Kofo laughed nervously. "Sir, it's trash she picked up. Don't mind her." "Shut up," Desmond roared, silencing the woman instantly. He turned back to Amara. "Can you play? Was that you last night?" Amara nodded. Desmond stood up. He looked at the security guards. "Bring her inside, and bring that woman too." The crowd followed them into the hotel lobby. It was a procession of judgment. They walked all the way to the ballroom. Desmond ripped the sheet off the grand piano. "Play," he commanded, his voice breaking.
"If you are who I think you are, play her song." Madame Kofo scoffed. "She doesn't know anything. She is a retarded." But before she could finish the insult, Amara sat down. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, and she began to play. This time she played with even more emotion than the night before. The music filled the room, soaring to the high ceilings. It was Clara's masterpiece, the unfinished symphony. Every note was perfect. Every pause was filled with longing. The hotel staff gathered at the doors, weeping. Pa Musa wiped his eyes. Even Madame Kofo stood with her mouth open, unable to comprehend what she was seeing. Desmond stood by the piano, tears flowing freely down his face for the first time in 3 years. He remembered the day Clara visited that orphanage. He remembered her talking about a child with eyes like the ocean, a child she wanted to adopt before the accident took her life. He realized that the child had been lost in the system, thrown onto the streets and abused, yet somehow she had found her way back to the only connection she had left, the music. When Amara finished the final note, the room was dead silent. She looked up at Desmond, fear still in her eyes, waiting to be yelled at. Instead, the billionaire dropped to his knees and wrapped her in a hug so tight it seemed he was trying to put her broken pieces back together. "I'm sorry," he sobbed. "I am so sorry I wasn't there." He stood up and turned to Madame Kofo. The look in his eyes made her blood run cold. "You called her a thief," he said, his voice deadly calm. "But the only thief here is you. You stole her childhood. You stole her dignity." He turned to his head of security. "Call the police commissioner. I want this woman arrested for child abuse, slavery, and endangerment. Make sure she never hurts a child again." As the police dragged Madame Kofo away, Desmond took Amara's hand. "You are not going back there. You are home." The story doesn't end there. It took time, therapy, and love, but Amara began to heal. Desmond legally adopted her, fulfilling his late wife's wish. He hired the best speech therapists in the world. 1 year later, the Royal Desmond Hotel hosted the biggest charity concert in Lagos. The ballroom was packed with celebrities and cameras. Desmond walked onto the stage, holding a microphone. "I once banned music from this house," he said, smiling. "But an angel taught me that music is the only thing that can heal a broken heart. Ladies and gentlemen, my daughter, Amara." Amara walked out. She looked like a princess in a gold gown. She sat at the piano and played a song she had written herself. It was a song of triumph. And when she finished, as the crowd gave her a standing ovation, she walked to the microphone. The room went silent. She took a deep breath, looked at Desmond, and spoke her first word in 6 years. "Daddy." Desmond wept. The internet broke. The video of that moment was shared millions of times, reminding the world of a simple truth. Talent hides in the unlikeliest places. Never look down on someone because of their situation. The girl you kick in the mud today might be the one who heals your heart tomorrow. If this story touched your soul, please share it with your friends and family. You never know who needs to hear this message of hope. Don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and remember, be kind always.